Beans are very easy to save. When they are ripe to eat, they will turn a light brown on the plant. And this is when you pick and harvest them. You try to get them when they're dried out, but before they get moldy. They seem to protect themselves. Even if the shells are a little bit moldy, it seems to protect itself from being moldy inside. And you just simply crack them open and they're your beans. These are quite small. These are, we didn't water our beans, but the thing about growing out and saving your own seeds is that they start adapting to the particular climate changes and the conditions in a particular place, maybe the short season of Maine or how it's drying out or whatever. The Marfax bean is an heirloom particular to this area. The bean flower is self-pollinating. The bumblebee is the only pollinator that might tear into the flower and cross-pollinate it with another kind of bean. So last year I had a speckled Marfax bean because that happened. It's very rare. It's something to just be aware of and celebrate when it happens because it's so rare. You have a new bean, but you want to definitely separate it out from saving it as a particular bean type. Peas are the same thing. You wait until after you would eat them so that they appear similar to this, dry it out on the vine, and then you crack them open and you have a dried pea. It's peas and beans. Pumpkin, it's kind of squash. It's a summer squash. There are 3 different kinds of squashes. There is the Cucurbita pepo, which is the summer squash. It includes zucchini, yellow crookneck, and most pumpkins. The Cucurbita maxima is a winter squash, and the Cucurbita moschata is a butternut squash. Each of those 3 varieties will cross within the species, but not across species. So if you grow a zucchini and a pumpkin together, you'll get something new, and it may be good and it may not be that great. Squash in general, the seeds are ready when the fruit is ready to eat, except for zucchini and yellow crookneck squash. You have to let them get enormous. You know, when you forget about a zucchini and it gets huge, the skin should start hardening and ripening like a pumpkin, and then the zucchini seed will be ready to harvest for planting. So when you forget about a zucchini and it gets huge, celebrate that you've just preserved those seeds. Simply, it's easy to save the seeds once they're ripe. You simply cut it open, just like you would tear out the seeds when carving a pumpkin. You just open it up. You might want to rinse off some of the fruity material, and then you simply put it on a paper towel to dry. Leave it for a day or 2 until they snap in half. You know that they're ready to dry, and then you store it in a cool, dry place. They'll stay viable for a few years. So that is how to save squash seeds. To begin the process, I will just cut the tomato. Better to do it on a cutting board and be safe than towards your fingers like I'm doing, but you get the idea. You can see the seeds are immersed in this kind of gelatinous, kind of gooey coat. And this is a method that plants use to keep the seeds from germinating too close to the mother plant. And the way you want to start saving tomato seeds is just to take these and squeeze the seeds out with the pulp and all into a glass container. I do this and still eat the tomato. I'm a little bit more gentle with the fruit, or maybe I don't get all of the seeds out because I like to enjoy the fruit. It's great to do this, especially if you're gonna roast the tomatoes, because then it doesn't matter if they're a little bit smushed up, right? Once you have them in this container, you want to have the liquid deep enough so that you can leave it out in a cool, not in direct sunlight. You don't want it to dry out. You want the liquid to actually ferment. So this is what it's going to look like initially. And then after 3 or 4 days, it will start getting the scum on top. And that's what you're going to rinse off to clean the tomato seeds. You can kind of see the scum on top and then the seeds down below. This is a really similar process to fermenting stone fruit, berries like viburnums, dogwoods, a lot of native berries. Also need to be fermented if you want to clean the seeds to be able to germinate them. So I'm just gonna dump it in a strainer, and you can do it in the sink or wherever. We have a hose here. So I'm just gonna wash it off. Very easy to come off. And the seeds are clean. Just gonna swirl this around. One way to tell if a seed is viable or if it's alive still is that viable seeds will sink in water. If you have a vessel of water, you see how the seeds will sink to the bottom. So you can really clean off, get all of the fruit material, all of the scummy stuff off the seeds so it's really clean. And kind of stir it around and the seed will sink. You can pour off most of the water and then finish straining it here. You'll want to spread this on a paper towel to dry, again for 3 or 4 days. Tomato seeds are great. They're kind of fuzzy. Once you ferment and clean and let them dry, they have these tiny little fuzzy hairs that are really nice. Seeds have pretty hard shells, so you can really rub off any extra material against the screen of the, you can kind of rub them pretty hard to get any of that extra material off. So you can kind of see how they're fuzzy, but it really comes out when they dry. If you were to try a grocery store tomato, try to find an heirloom tomato, because the heirlooms have not been genetically altered. Most tomatoes from a grocery store are F1 hybrids, and that means that if you save the seed and try to grow it out, it will not grow into the same fruit. It will change. When you find an heirloom tomato, it's great to find them at the farmer's market too. And again, if you find them at the farmer's market, they have already adjusted to this climate, so they will be ready to grow here again. And Maine, with such a short season, that's something to consider.